In this episode, we talk with Tommy Powers, a former distribution hacker in residence at 500 startups, and how he manages over 15 million a year in media across YouTube, Google, and Facebook. We talk about his one winning rich ad that has over 5 million views on YouTube, as well as how they were able to spend $1 million in ad spend behind that one video ad. Plus, you'll also talk about some of the behind the scenes conversations he had with some of the LPs early on at 500 startups and how they look at managing their finances and investing. It's a super interesting episode. Enjoy.
We bought in the span of 3.5 years on YouTube, we probably only even spent $2 million on YouTube. I mean, we were running other sources, search and shopping and stuff like that. But I mean, the majority of the money we were spending on YouTube went to that ad. Actually, we had over a billion and something impressions from that ad. It was ridiculous, which was driving like all kind of searches and YouTube searches and Google searches. And, because the Google search numbers from Organifi went from like 0 to like 40, 50,000 a month. It was crazy. It was just like all of this spillover. It was crazy, man.
Listening to the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast, where we break down the financial principles that rich advertisers are deploying today to turn advertising into profit and get tons of traffic to their websites without killing their cash. These advertisers, agencies, affiliates, brands are responsible for managing over $1 billion a year in ad spend. You'll hear about what's working for them today, their rich ads, and we'll roast their epic failures and crappy ads on the internet with poor ads. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. This is your host, Zach Johnson. I'm with the one and only Dylan Carpenter. You excited, Dylan?
Pumped, man. Talking about some heavy spending YouTube ads today, man. I'm pumped.
Yes. Yeah, today's guest, I think he manages upwards of 5 million on YouTube ads and probably 15 million in terms of if you were to blend in Facebook, Google, and YouTube ads. So, but he's also an OG in the world of advertising, right? Like there's a ton of I think newer agencies that have learned from today's guest or been a part of some of his trainings or postings like that. But he's been part of 500 startups. So he's kind of been in the whole Silicon Valley world, helping startups kind of growth hack their way to success. He's also been on Entrepreneur on Fire, Social Media Examiner. I mean, he's kind of been all over the place. But if you are in the world of media buying, then you know today's guest. And I'm excited to have him on, man. I think that we have far too many Facebook ad experts on this show. And so I'm excited to have him on. So Tommy, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Doing great. I'm excited.
Tommy Powers, the OG. So for those that don't know who you are, maybe give everybody a little bit of a snapshot on what you're up to these days, because you're in the agency game. You're working with, an elite half a dozen or so clients that are spending a big chunk of change, right? Like if you're spending 10, 20, 30 grand a month, like don't go knocking on Tommy's door because he's gonna not open it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell everybody a little bit about what you're up to now and how you got here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't even know I'm back in the agency game. I kind of been in stealth mode building, but yeah, on the agency side, we primarily focus on YouTube advertising. I think creative, being able to produce really effective videos has been a big game changer, which kind of allowed me to kind of pivot back into. I kind of ran away from the whole YouTube ads OG moniker, kind of thing, because it's like, whatever, I ain't guru this, that type of thing. But, getting into that lane and really seeing that allowed me to kind of pivot to, it's like, okay, we're really good at this, let's kind of double down on it. And I kind of been around for a while, man. I started affiliate marketing in like 2007 with Google Display. Back then it was Content Network is what it's called, but it's kind of how I got my start, man. And I kind of got somehow stumbled into Google Ads and affiliate marketing because I tried a bunch of stuff. And man, once I logged into the Google account, I was like, I got it, and I just kind of was like, I just been in this lane. And so it went from the affiliate stuff to the agency stuff to, the Silicon Valley thing and to, trying to be an investor to the agency thing. But it's always has been, paid ads has been my lane. And so that's kind of where I'm at, now.
Oh yeah, I want to get into how you're setting up your agency, right? Like, there's we were talking before this. Like, there's so many ways to set it up, and you've been obviously in the rev share side of things with
Yep.
500 startups. They're all about the equity, and you've also been on the affiliate and the performance side, which a ton of agencies are trying to like jump into. They're trying to get out of the percentage of spend and fixed retainers and in to some performance and kind of hybrid affiliate stuff. So I feel like there's you're going to share some wise words with us today on some financial principles, how to structure the agency.
Okay.
But let's kick this off, Dylan. Let's dive into this rich ed.
Yeah. So we'd love to kind of, dive into kind of something that's working super well, aka the rich ad side of things. And you have a killer example for us today with the one and only Organifi.
Yeah.
But you actually kind of mentioned, this video is 5 million views, spent over 7 figures on this one ad or one video. So, I mean, this thing's done some damage. So, I mean, we'll pop this bad boy in the show notes, but go ahead and showcase this kind of rich ad and kind of give us the context behind it.
Yeah, man. When I was emailing you about it, I was saying like I had already done this a couple of times, and I had some success previously with this strategy. I want to say 2012 or 13. I don't know. I want to say, man, Kevin Kurganski. You know Kevin? Zach, don't you know?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes.
So that was the first guy that I used this strategy with. So we took Kevin's VSL. It was like an hour and 10 minutes. And my idea was, hey, man, let's put the whole thing on YouTube. And then we're going to drive, in display is what those ads were called back then. And we're going to drive ads to that. And back then they had something called external link annotations. So what that would allow you to do is plug a annotation anywhere in the video that would link out wherever you want it. Well, it'd be your website, so you connect your website. They don't have this feature anymore. This is one of the reasons what killed this strategy, but me and him did it first, and it just took off. Like literally, he went from $5,000 a month to like a 7-figure business in the span of maybe like 6 months. It was crazy.
So he was the creator of the Breakup Doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was kind of this like how it was like like dating is a huge niche, right? Like, and it's kind of oh, hey, you went through that whole funnel. Now here's like the remedy of how to get through it. It's a great niche, in the grand scheme of dating, but he really was like, that was his two skill sets. He was like a great coach for that, but everybody knew him as like the ads guy and the funnel guy for that space. Yeah, that's cool. You were doing stuff with him back in the day. I think he actually has an agency. All roads like lead.
Maybe so. I need to hit him up. Me and him ain't talked in a while, but at this time he was probably, and he'll tell you the story. I mean, he wrote me like a 3-page testimonial one time. I hit him up, was like, "Hey man, can you?" And it was crazy. It was like changed his life in the whole 9.
So let's talk about Organifi for a second, though, because those guys absolutely slay it on ClickBank. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what their numbers are, but it's got to be upwards of like 50 million a year now. It's in terms of it's ridiculous, it's right?
Great. Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal offer. It honestly reminds me of the days when I used to work with Dr. Axe on the paid media side, where it's like you just get something that like that you can't put that fire out. So. Yeah. How do you still work with them? How long did you work with them? How long did this campaign go for? Tell us about this.
Yeah, I worked with them for about 3.5 years, man.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, wow. So I helped them. So I was there in the beginning of Organifi, like at the very beginning of it. And that video, that link that I sent you, that was the catalyst. But the point that I was making about even Kevin was Kevin was like the first guy, and then I did that with a couple of other people. So I'd already created a couple 7-figure businesses with this strategy of, entire VSL on YouTube, run ads to it, drop them off to a order page. And so by the time I got to Organifi, this system was, prime time. And man, when we ran it for them, it just took off, and the company just took off. But that ad was, very critical to all of that, because YouTube ads is kind of how we got that thing jumped off with the ads, and then obviously they got into the Facebook and everything else, and the thing just kind of went bonkers.
So you're saying this video did over 5 million views, this
All paid.
VSL for them. And what was the spend, right? See, they went from spending what on YouTube to like the end. What do you think that's?
I mean, that one video alone was over $1 million by itself. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't know that we've had very many people on this show that have spent $1 million on a single ad. I feel like there's maybe some people that have gotten like 250, 500,000 and spend on a single ad. But Tommy, you're setting some records right now, man. I love it.
I mean, I had another ad like that with another company that I work with. We spent about $500,000 on an ad like that.
Oh.
So yeah, it's that strategy was berserk, and then Google changed and YouTube changed, and then they took away the annotations, and they did a bunch of things, and then the algorithm changed, and then target CPA, smart bidding, and all of this other stuff came out, and so we end up transitioning into the in-stream, because it's really a algorithmic play, right? You get the smart bidding capabilities with the artificial intelligence. So now we have to lean heavily on that, but back then that strategy was just
for all you listening, what you just learned about the rich ad, you can't actually deploy today. So unfortunately, this has all just been for fun.
I mean, you can. That's not true. It actually still works.
Really?
It's not nearly as good as it used to. Yeah, that strategy still works.
Got it.
Absolutely.
It's such a different type of video too, with words rather than a talking head. So it's such a different kind of concept to where, did y'all test that out of the gate, or did you have somebody talking as well?
Out the gate. Well, see, the other part of that too is in one of the other deals where we crushed it with this strategy, the same guy that wrote that VSL wrote Organifi's VSL. So the copywriter guy that I was working with, his name is Matt O'Connor, by the way. I always give him a shout out. Me and Matt have made history together. But Matt was my guy. And so I brought Matt into the Organifi deal. I introduced them, into that deal. So Matt already, by the time he got to them, it already is what it is. It's like, we already had the formula basically. And it just, it just went berserk,
Oh my gosh, Matt O'Connor. He's I feel like I think I know Matt.
Matt has a string of 7-figure, 8-figure VSLs and sales letters, and it's like I ain't even telling how much revenue Matt can help people generate. It's bunkers. It's a lot. It's a huge number. I know that. Whatever it is.
What's Matt run these days to have him script out your VSL? $1 million?
You probably can't even pay him. I mean, I don't know. You might. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I think, I don't know. I don't actually know what it is. I mean, I've talked to Matt maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. I think he's more on the upside of whatever he's doing. I actually learned a valuable lesson from Matt too, because Matt understood the royalty game when we was doing that back then, and I didn't. And it's like, 3.5, 4 years later, I did very well working with them. But geez, I wish I would have, negotiated a royalty deal. You know what I'm saying? So, so I learned a valuable lesson in that. But yeah, man, I think he's probably more into that, but I'm not 100% sure.
Man, that's quite the rich ad there.
Yeah, man, crazy, man. It was just so bananas, man. It just really just went crazy. We bought in the span of 3.5 years on YouTube, we probably only even spent $2 million on YouTube. I mean, we were running other sources, search and shopping and stuff like that. But I mean, the majority of the money we were spending on YouTube went to that ad. Actually, we had over 1 billion and something impressions from that ad. It was ridiculous. which was driving like all kind of searches and YouTube searches and Google searches. And, because the Google search numbers from Organifi went from like 0 to like 40, 50,000 a month. It was crazy. It was just like all of this spillover. It was crazy, man.
My gosh, that's quite a freaking rich ad there we had, Zach.
Yeah.
So, well, that was killer. We love to kind of dive into our poor ad segment, something that you thought would maybe work good, maybe crash and burned. But yeah, go ahead and kind of dive into kind of more of a poor ad concept there to kind of, let everybody know we're not perfect.
Hey man, e-commerce lead generation, man. Honestly, like I was working with these people, man, and they kind of talked me into it. I didn't think it was a good idea, but they kind of kept being on me about it. And, we kind of, did all of this stuff around, generating leads and then pushing our offers, e-commerce offers on the back end of that. Now, granted, we were already driving, acquisition, on purchase, but, they wanted to do a lead gen thing and, kind of get all of these leads or whatever the case may be. And I really wasn't into it at first, to be frank. But after a while, it was just like, okay, and I was all in on it. And so we had this massive amount of energy and work and time and money we spent. And it was just a complete and utter disaster. So much so that when somebody come to me in the e-com space talking about driving for leads instead of for purchases, I don't want to hear it. It's like, I'm good. And I know it works. I'm sure other people is probably making it work. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just for me, that experience was so terrible, I'm good. You know what I mean? I learned a lesson, a long time ago from a guy I was working with. He only wanted buyers. He never wanted freebie seekers is what he called them. I only want buyers. And I always kind of, took from that and I kind of went with that. And so to pivot away from that was a reminder, dude, stick with the buyers. Only get the buyers and then serve them well and then sell them more and you can increase your LTV and so forth and so on. And so we always now, I only want to work with bringing you, at least in the e-commerce physical product space, I only want to bring you in as a buyer into my universe rather than getting your email and then trying to follow up with you. And it was just a disaster. A lot of time and energy and money.
We need a little button on this show, Dylan. Failure.
Yeah. Failure. For real. Exactly. Yeah.
Just like crash, burn, explosion.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, even to stem from that, the amount of window shoppers these days are just so bad. So I mean, it's a real thing.
But you gotta think about this too, right? You're trying to retrain your pixel. See, I wouldn't even, I probably would have knew that if I was really thinking about it, but it's like after the fact, these things you learn, it's like, even having conversations with other friends of mine who are media buyers, who Facebook ads and all of this different stuff. And it's like, well, all of a sudden you're trying to retrain the pixel to give you this action versus that action, and that whole thing. And I was like, that's so right. It's like, oh my God. So it's like all these little things that you really don't take into consideration when you're already spending. We was probably spending 50, 60 grand a month already on Facebook because this was some Facebook ads and trying to go after that. We're trying to like completely retrain the pixel. It was just a disaster. Yeah, it's probably like 2018. That was one of those situations where when I talk about the investing stuff, I realized my pockets went deep because I pumped a lot of cash and my own money and team and stuff into that. And I lost big on it, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't need that loss at that time. So, it was thinking about it.
I didn't need that loss at that time.
Not at that you can be in position where you can take a L, you know what I mean? And I was able to recover from it, but I'm saying like, I wasn't really in a space where like, I really was thinking like everything I'm going to do is going to be, and I really like needed it to be like, and then it didn't work out, and I pumped a lot of money and energy and time into it and I lost big, I lost big. I wasn't able to recoup much of anything out of that. And so it's just really painful just even talking about it.
All right, let's change the topic then. Let's not talk about that anymore. We don't want Tommy to be like, man, that was a depressing podcast. This episode is brought to you by Funnel Dash's Ad Card, the only charge card exclusively for your digital ad spend. And if you're an ad agency that manages 7 or even 8 figures a year in media and ad spend for your clients, and you're looking to double your profits over the next 6 to 12 months, then check out Ad Card. See, the typical agency model is this. You charge 10% of your spend, and you make 10 to 20% margin at the end of the day. So that's really 1 to 2% of your client's spend that is profit in your business. The easiest way to double that is to really find a way to earn in that 1 to 2% cash back of the card that is on file of your client's ad account. And before Ad Card, what you had to do was invoice all your clients for their ad spend up front, which is really difficult on a cash flow basis and very difficult ask. And then you had to put the card on your own Amex or whatever card of choice to get that level of value back into your business. With Ad Card, it's entirely different and streamlined. You simply get your clients on Ad Card and make yourself the agency of record, and you'll get the cash back as long as you're managing the ad spend. It's a great way to double your profit without doing any additional work. Check it out at funneldash.com. Let's talk about some financial principles here for those listening, and I want to dive into your days at 500 startups, right? Like,
Right.
this is something that, like, the world of equity and accelerators and startups and growth hacking is so aspirationalized and so elusive for many people about the realities of it.
Right.
But a lot of agencies also are under the impression of, like, if I could just get in with one of these accelerators, I'll have all of the business
Right.
and I'll grow my agency.
Yeah.
I'll also say one other thing, which is 40%. I don't know if you know this. This came out like a couple of years ago. 40% of venture capital is spent on paid ads.
Absolutely. It's probably more than that.
So I want to talk about your 500 startup days. Like, what was the setup there? Like, what was your role? You know, what were you doing? Why were you there? Walk us through
I was out there. I used to ask myself that question.
that.
No, so it kind of started out, man. It kind of go back to the YouTube thing, man. It's kind of crazy, right? Because it kind of go through my career, and I started YouTube as 2012, and so many great things that has happened in my life since then had something to do with YouTube, you know. And this girl Tammy, this young lady Tammy Camp, Tammy runs a company now, her own company, but at the time she was in 500, and she was looking for someone to come and teach the portfolio companies about YouTube advertising, you know, how to leverage that, you know, in their growth. And she was asking around, and she was, you know, by the time she hit me up, she was like, you know, I asked around, and your name came up like 4 or 5 times, like, you know, would you be interested in coming and speaking to our portfolio companies? We running this batch, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just kind of like, I already knew who 500 Startups was, but I was just kind of like, wow, like where the hell that came from, right? But I said yes. I went, and first time I went, then after I come back, probably like a week or 2 later, they was like, hey, can you come back next month? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, maybe they actually like me. So the second time I go back, that's when I kind of was able to let my guard down. And that's when I kind of realized I kind of fit into this. And I saw that they saw the value that I had. And it kind of went from there.
Yeah.
And so my role was really just distribution hacker in residence. That just means whenever they have portfolio companies who need help with distribution or growth hacking or what have you, you know, my specialty was paid ads. You know, it wasn't just YouTube ads, because I have a wealth of experience in that arena. And so, you know, typically they would, you know, send people my way when they had like very specific things that they needed help with that, you know, I was the best fit for.
Yeah. And so, was this just like a volunteer setup? Did they pay you?
I got paid. No, it wasn't no volunteer setup. No
The
volunteer
nonprofit setup?
No. So 500 Startups is a fund, you know, and basically they get people with large sums of money to put it into their fund, and then they take that money and invest it in companies.
Yeah.
So in essence, that's what they do, and I think they probably close to $500 million assets under management now, something crazy like that. Yeah. They probably five. I don't know what the number is, but it's pretty big. But and they portfolio companies, man, are. I think last time I remember it was over 2,000. So it's probably more than 2,000 companies because their motto was more of smaller investments in lots of companies rather than a typical VCs in the Valley. They may do 10 or 20 deals a year. 500 startups is doing 2, 3, 400, 500 deals a year, even in some, maybe not 500, but they're doing, hundreds of deals. So their motto was a lot different when they kind of start doing that than the typical VCs. And so they just have a lot more portfolio companies. And so they need more people like myself who has a real world expertise that can give it to these companies and help those companies create value, because the name of the game is the more valuable it becomes, the more valuable their investment is, the more, everybody make money.
Yeah. So when you're like a growth hacker in residence, like is that like just like a monthly retainer, like a
Yep.
client almost?
Yeah, pretty much.
And like what do you think these funds would pay somebody for like that these days?
You get what you negotiate, is what I would say.
Is it like an agency client where you can go get like a 10 grand a month retainer, or is it like
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, again, it's like, are you worth 10 grand a month though?
Tommy Powers is?
I'm just saying, like, I'm not gonna put their business out there like that. I'm just saying, like, you get what you negotiate, and it's really all about, what value can you bring, and can you, for me, I kind of was able to go in, and before I start taking money, I proved my value, right?
Right.
To them, and so by the time we started having a conversation about money, there wasn't any question about what my value was. It was just more of, I don't know if I could do it like that. I don't think that might not be worth my time. Like, what about this?
Yeah.
Type of thing. So it's like you get what you negotiate. But yeah, I think there are probably people getting more than I was getting, because maybe they, sold a company for $100 million, $200 million, or
Right.
whatever they did, right? And, maybe that has a different value proposition. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of people don't know like how that world works, and how you can. I mean, they're pretty much pretty much like almost like a client, right? And
pretty much.
was it good deal flow for you? You weren't really doing the agency thing at the time, so
Not really. Because I've always been about scalable advertising type of situations rather than volume based agency models. You know what I mean? So so not really great deal. I mean, there was some deal flow. Obviously I do consulting. Not really now. I haven't been doing any this year, but at that time I was doing that. So there was those opportunities. But just in terms of like agency clients where we're running and managing a lot of their ad spend and that kind of thing, not as much. It was more consulting type stuff where, you help someone in accelerator, they get some result, and then they come back and say, hey, we just raised, a seed round or whatever, and, we got this money and we really value what you helped us with. It's like, how can we hire you to, kind of give us some advice and some guidance on how we can, type of thing. So I had a couple of those for sure.
Out of curiosity, with all those, with them doing that, 400 to 500 deals a year, I mean, that's a ton. Did you have any kind of insights on, how many startups actually made it through, or like, did they have a higher? I'm kind of curious. I don't know much about that, but I'm just kind of curious of how many actually would make it through if they're doing 400
What
to
do you mean
500
make it through? What do you mean?
that are still in existence, more or less.
Yeah, that's make it through.
The failure rate is very high.
Survival.
The failure rate is very high. It's probably 80%,
Oh, wow.
78%. I mean, their motto is principle. The principle of their motto, they understand, like, if we do 100 deals, 80 of them will fail. 10 of them might, break even. 7 of them might be, 50 million, 100 million valuation. 2 of them might be 100 million to $1 billion. Then we get one unicorn. So if they really follow that principle, they're gonna 3 to 5x or more of their money every 5 to 7 years, even with that math. So what people have to understand, for me, coming in the world that I come from, 3 to 5x is like, that's all y'all doing every 5 to 7 years. Like, I can do that every day, type of thing. And so having conversations with limited partners, like people who put money in these funds, like, these people, 300 million, 500 million, $1 billion, family offices and stuff. when they ask me what I do and I tell them I'm getting a 5x return every day on the money that I'm spending, they think that, oh, that's a Ponzi scheme. You know what I'm saying? Like that scares the hell out of them. Like for real, they scare the hell out of them, right? Their thing is, I want to, what the one lady told me that blew my mind the first time I really got it, she said, I want to maintain buying power throughout time is what our goal is as a family. And I was just kind of like, okay. If, for like a week after that, I was just like, what the hell did she tell me? It just was a different way of thinking, right? If they beat the S&P 500 and inflation, they can maintain buying power. It's just a different way of thinking. I was just like, holy, what I mean? It's like, wow, you know what I mean? So that's when I started understanding. It's like, okay, this is on a whole nother level, like just a whole different way to think about things. But, even with a high failure rate, early on, I'm like, why is that? But once I kind of understood the motto is like, it's not really about having an 80% success rate. It's really about, if our clients are beating, inflation in the S&P 500 and, they're getting a return on their money and they maintain it. Buying power, they're growing their portfolio, they're going to be extremely ecstatic because these people are, this lady was the fourth generation of that money. Her whole thing is when I pass it to the next generation, it's at least as much buying power as when I got it. And it just kind of was like, man, I want that for my family.
Dude, that is crazy. I love that concept of I just want to maintain buying power.
That's crazy.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super cool. Let's get her on the show.
Yeah. I don't even remember her name, actually.
She's the maintain buying power lady.
Yeah. I remember that lesson, though.
That's a phenomenal lesson.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Tommy, man, you've been an awesome guest. I appreciate you going down memory lane here. This is all like old stuff for you, man. I feel like you're up to some new things here. So
sure.
Tell everybody a little bit about what you're up to next and how we can support you and how everybody can get in touch.
Yeah, man, TommieTraffic. I've been working in stealth. I am going to be, pushing out this new company that I'm focused on. I'm on a 3 to 5 year run with that. My ultimate goal is to be my own client, but I'm just trying to be smarter about how I go about that this time around. So right now my goal is just to, make a bunch of more, people. I want to make some companies bigger than what Organifi is. Because, my game right now is I understand, if I can make people successful, there's a win-win in that, we can both make very well. And then obviously I have a long-term vision of what I want to accomplish. So right now, that's kind of where I'm focused at. We're doing very well in that. And I'm looking 2021, we should be able to kind of open that up a bit and kind of push it a little further and try to help a few more people and have the kind of infrastructure to support them at the level that we want. Because I take pride in the support that I offer. And kind of like we talked about before is, you kind of all up in, kind of parts of the business. That's how you really, truly help people get breakthroughs, man. You can't just show up and, throw some ads up and be able to do like the kind of stuff that I've been able to do was never about just, being ads. It has always been about understanding that business as innately as I can to make sure that what I'm doing is actually having the proper impact on that business. And so I'm looking to kind of really nail down my systems around how we do that as a team, as a company, so I can plug that machine into more people and kind of blow them up. And they pay us well, and they make out like a bandit, and then eventually I'll have enough capital to build my own fund. Basically, is kind of what I'm after.
Dude, that's awesome, man. TommieTraffic, the OG of YouTube ads, man.
Right.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. If you're like me and listen to podcasts on the go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and richadpoorad.com/podcast. And if you absolutely love the show, go ahead and leave a review and a comment, share with a friend. If you do, Take a copy, screenshot of it, email me, zach@funneldash.com, show me you left a review, and I'll give you a free copy of the Rich Ad Poor Ad book. To learn more about the book, go to richadpoorad.com. To leave a review, go to richadpoorad.com/review. Thanks again.